Hello, you two. It is Cheryl Muir, life coach and lead management expert. Thank you for joining me today. Now, this is our first video together, so I wanted to start off and talk about fear, the F word, the other F word. Why is fear such an important thing to talk about? Well, fear is the difference between living the life you love and staying stuck in a life that is not fulfilling to you. Now, I hope you're sitting comfortably because we're going to have a little bit of story time here, okay? I've got a story about fear from my own experience. As you might be able to tell, I have a bit of an accent, and you might be thinking, that girl is not from Vancouver, and you would be correct, my friend. You would be absolutely correct. I was born and raised in England, and I emigrated here 5 years ago. I tell you that because I'm sure you might have some questions about my accent. I know people sometimes do, and so that's the reason there, and also because emigrating was, and I'm not being superfluous here, it really was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I remember so vividly being there in the departure lounge in Manchester Airport and being about to take off on my one-way ticket to Vancouver in 2009, right slam dunk in the middle of the recession with no job to go to, nowhere to live other than 5 days booked in a hostel somewhere. Knowing that I had to hit the ground running as soon as I got there, and it just felt too hard. It felt way too difficult to go through with, and then there was a voice over the tannoy and it said the flight's going to be delayed for 30 minutes. And I thought, I wonder how far my parents have got down the motorway. I wonder if I can give them a call and they can come back and come get me. And I realized in that moment exactly who I was. And I knew, I'm not the kind of person that's going to go call my mum and dad and say, hey, this is too difficult, come bail me out here. That's not who I am. And so what I realized is that I was going to go through with this, and it was scary, but I was going to have to bite the bullet and go for it. And so I started thinking about something positive. I started thinking about the flight and things to look forward to there. Because I was flying on a one-way ticket, I decided I could pay twice as much. And so I decided to treat myself and upgrade to business class. So I started thinking about the food on board and the nice comfy seats and the service. And, having flown to places like Australia in economy, I was pretty excited to have a little bit of extra leg room. I'm only 5'2", but the extra leg room, not going to complain. And so I started thinking about those things and realizing that I'm going to do this. Now, it's not a complete fairy tale. I didn't land in Vancouver and boom, everything fell into place. That wasn't the way it went at all. It took a lot of hard work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It wasn't easy. But I realized in that moment that fear isn't real, but it feels real. And that's where it's tricky, because how can we say that it's not real when we get this physical reaction to it? Well, the reason is that fear is actually meant to be very useful to our survival. Fear is really useful if you're trying to outrun a mountain lion. But if you're giving a presentation at work, it's not so helpful. Your heart starts going, you start sweating, freaking out. It's not really that helpful. Unless you're in physical danger, fear really isn't that useful to us. The old phrase, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, is a cliche for a reason. It's very, very true. And so what do you do when you feel that fear? Well, the first thing to do is to feel it and to acknowledge it and say, okay, feeling a little bit of fear here. And just know that that's what it is. It's okay. Don't see it with any judgment. Don't judge yourself for it and think you're bad for feeling scared. And here's another thing. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling scared as hell, but doing it anyway. That's what I learned. And so when you're in that moment, feel the fear and say, okay, feel a little bit scared, and decide to move forward. And how do you do that? Well, you need to have a purpose. Realize what your purpose is and realize that you need to get through this because it's aligned with where you want to be. So that's my little story about fear. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me in the comments below what you're afraid of, or maybe even some times that you've overcome fear. I'd love to hear about it. Don't be a stranger. Introduce yourself and be a part of the community. Thanks for watching.